of the Credit First Nation, who are direct descendants of the Mississaugas of the Credit. We're grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land, and by doing so, give our respect to its first inhabitants. Welcome to Woodland, and this is May in 2019. Okay, and so we are actually, this was the year of our inception. We had just incorporated, we had just gone to council and asked council to please waive the fee for Boulevard Gardens, and several years before that we had taken a deputation to Mississauga Council asking to have a bylaw amended so Boulevard Gardens would be allowed. And so we hatched the idea to start up our organization called Blooming Boulevards. What else? And we didn't muddle too much over the name. It seemed like a no-brainer. Miraculously, the name was available. And so we call ourselves the Busy BBs because we have not literally allowed grass to go under our feet in those 4 years. We're now heading into our 5th year, and the first year here, we were signing up our first members. I think we had 70-some members. We managed to put in, grow 2,000 native plants, locally sourced, and put in 13 gardens, and mostly our friends and people who live nearby. Okay, so now heading into our 5th year, we average at least 8,000 plants a year. Our goal is to produce eventually 10 to 20,000, possibly more, if we can get a facility for growing those plants. Right now we're growing plants in our own volunteers and propagators in their own homes. So then we have managed to, with my much hard work and enthusiastic participation of our volunteers, we have not only grown the plants, but we have provided these plants to over 300 gardens across the city of Mississauga. So we're very proud of what we do, and I'd just like to run over that for a minute. What we do is, again, very important, raise awareness about the importance of pollinating insects. And we teach skills, how to grow plants, why we're growing these plants, how to save your seed, how to propagate plants and why they're important, how to choose the right plants for your gardens and where to locate them. Then we help people to make gardens. And of course, what we do is we try and grow as many native plants as we can, because we don't have really a reliable source of native plants, the species that we want to grow that are local to our Credit River watershed here in Mississauga. So we try to provide these plants by sourcing the seed material with permission, very carefully, to make sure we don't deplete the local wild seed, making sure that we keep the genetic integrity intact, and because we understand that we're distributing these all over the city. Okay? And so we create pollinator habitat, and that's very, very important. And the reason why we do that is because there's been a catastrophic loss of meadowlands and grasslands here in southern Ontario, and in fact all over the world. So not only are we trying to increase the area that pollinators can use for nesting and foraging, but also we are trying to link those areas so that the pollinator populations can find each other and breed, and therefore keep themselves strong and resilient genetically. So we connect, we're all about connection, we're networking habitats, but also we connect neighborhoods to nature. In other words, you don't need to get in your car and drive somewhere to see what's happening with the natural processes, with nature's processes. They're right there in your yard, at the end of your driveway, when we're talking about boulevard gardens. When you're talking about making it working together with other environmental organizations in our city, which we do, or working with the municipality, and we do a lot of work with Mississauga Parks and Forestry. We're working also on making connections and increasing familiarity of people with native plants and why they are important. So a lot of people say I can't grow prairie plants, I can't grow a lot of plants. I only have trees, I have trees, nothing will grow underneath my trees. Okay. Yeah. So people kindly mute yourselves, please. Thank you. I beg to differ. And that's why I created this webinar, so that I can familiarize you and help you familiarize yourself with the types of plants and all of the variety that's available to you for challenging situations that you might be encountering if you've got shade and trees and areas underneath your trees that you're finding difficulty growing other types of plants. So we've talked about going native and possibly not buying regular plants that you can find in garden centers that are produced by clonally or produced, in other words, they're produced by division so that all the babies are exactly the same as their parents. Or plants that are not hybridized so that they don't meet the needs of human aesthetics, and that's not the most important thing about producing a plant. So instead, we want plants. We're going to try and give you reasons why we choose plants that are good for everyone, not just people, but also the world of wildlife that we share our planet with. Okay, and choosing a site and basics on design, showing you a portfolio of gardens that I hope will inspire you, and then we'll get to a portfolio of Woodland all-star plants. Now, I should mention at this point that on our website is a very rich source of resources and information that you can download. And I have the link for the downloads for this particular workshop that have specifics on the all-stars for woodland plants that you can access. So hang with us to the end and you can get that link at the end of the webinar. Going native. Now, this is my backyard before I put in my native garden, okay? So I think probably like many of us years ago, I've always been interested in native plants and nature, woodland, and walking through the woods and taking a look and trying to identify the plants. But I didn't know how important it was to actually garden with them. And so this is my granddaughter standing by the steps of her little play set with all of the neighborhood children. This was perfect, okay? I had a nice garden, had patches of lawn, which I was in the process of shrinking. Before this, the area was a swimming pool, okay? And we've been living here for about 22 years. So the first phase was swimming pool and pure sun and a vegetable garden. Second phase, take the pool out, put in wood chips, put in the play area, okay? Third phase was, so we're gardening to meet our family's needs, essentially. And this is the way the garden looks now, okay? So my granddaughter decided that there were lots of spiders in her play set. She got older, didn't want to play it anymore. And at that point, I was taking horticulture courses and finding out, paying attention, really doing research, deep research on the importance of expanding habitat for our pollinating insect. So that's when we started. I really seriously started growing native plants. So my garden is only 5 years old and it looks like this. And that hopefully will encourage you if you're just starting, that, it doesn't take years and years. You get almost immediate shady area. The area in the front that you see is my little patch of sun. All the rest is woodland and shade, including my front yard. This is my backyard. So biodiversity in Ontario is at risk. We've lost a huge amount of grasslands, 98% in southern Ontario alone. 80% of our forests are gone, 70% of our wetlands. We've lost plant and animal species, or they're classified as at risk. They are at risk of becoming locally extinct. We hardly have any native turtles species anymore left in Ontario, in southern Ontario. And that is something that should concern everyone. And we can do something about that. Okay, so if you're landscaping with non-native plants, you look at the diagram on the left, you see that we have rather generalist birds, really toughies that will, inhabit most. They're very resourceful about what they eat and what they can deal with. We have a few tough insects that hang on, and a few tough plants that they can, non-native plants will feed these creatures. Okay, if you're landscaping, if you add native plants to your landscape, then you add a greater range of wildlife, including birds that need those caterpillars to feed their young, the caterpillars that eat the leaves that require native trees so that they can nourish the larvae. The butterflies and moths must have special types of trees that will feed their caterpillars, that feed the birds. Again, there's a whole food chain that expands and increases the abundance of wildlife. So compared to traditional landscaping, native landscaping supports 50% higher abundance of native birds, 9 times higher abundance of rare birds, 3 times more butterfly species, and twice as many native bees. It is worth it. So why birds need native plants? Okay, birds don't reproduce on berries and seeds. They might nourish their own bodies on berries and seeds, but their young need insects. And Dr. Douglas Talmay, together with other scientists that he was working together with, discovered, they did studies on the Carolina chickadee, okay, and they discovered an extraordinary number of caterpillars needed in order to produce their chickadee family. So native woodland gardens provide year-round habitat as well, okay? The seeds in particular nourish the birds, but also the stems of your plants, if allowed to remain standing, are also places where bees and other insects can burrow and overwinter. The fallen leaves will allow insects to shelter and then reproduce and survive until the following year. Okay, so what happens when we are using only one kind of plant, or we are zeroing in on only a few limited types of plants? Hostas are a good example. Turf grass, or regular Kentucky turf grass, lawns, Kentucky bluegrass and fescues, all the same species. Are Japanese maples, are hostas and hydrangeas. All of these, and you see Aristillas, they all come from afar. They were not native to North America. Our local native insects, especially the specialist insects, do not know what to do with the flowers of these plants. Generalist insects such as bumblebees and European insects like honeybees will gravitate toward these flowers. And so if you say, well, I do have bees on my flowers, I do, but they're not our specialist bees, the native bees that have evolved together with our native plants here in the So hostas are tough if they're low care plants. They make gardening easier. They will withstand dry shade. They come forth. The horticulture industry has made sure that it produces a huge variety of cultivars so that you've got a whole hosta in every color, okay, and every type of pattern, and you can create a beautiful, beautifully designed garden with only just hostas, hydrangeas, Japanese maples, okay, a few astilbas thrown in, okay, maybe, but what's the fun in using the same plant over and over again? But sure, I do have a lot more choices here. And it's just a matter of learning what those choices might be. Okay, so we're looking for diversity here. Without the native plants, we lose all kinds of butterflies and bees that have adapted and co-evolved to the needs of natives. And so these are, I'll plant these instead. It doesn't have anything to do with invasive plants. It's just the choices that you have so that you can introduce more variety into your garden and also invite more wildlife into your garden. So here are some classics that are very easy to grow in shade. One is called false Solomon seal, and also your Solomon seal is also a very good one. Beautiful foamy flowers that will make a good substitute for your garden astilbe, for example. Wild ginger, and I'll move over to big leaf wood aster too, have big heart-shaped leaves that are ornamental. They're very beautiful. They make a pattern and a texture. The plants themselves are mounded in shape. The wild ginger is a lovely ground cover. And these are great substitutes for hostas. The wild geranium has beautiful pink flowers. It's also a wonderful ground cover. Lacy foliage. Bush honeysuckle is a wonderful flowering native shrub, and I'll be telling you about other flowering native shrubs that are great for shade too. Wild blue phlox is the picture, the photo and the illustration here, also extremely lovely and introduces color in a spring native garden. So we have a great botanical richness and beauty in the GTA, that's the Greater Toronto area that awaits us all. If you are elsewhere in a different region than the northern shore of Lake Ontario, if you're in northern Ontario, for example, or if you're toward the west or east of us, check your local conservation authority for the plants that are native to your area and those that will accommodate shade. So start small, but start now. Sustainability is no longer about doing less harm, it's about doing more good, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to do more good. The site vendors. When we see land as a community to which we belong, we begin to use it with love and respect. And that is almost my mantra here. We think of our landscape as a community. It's not something to decorate. It's not your living room. The plants are not furniture or objects, where you're moving around and you get tired of them and you throw them away and put something else there instead. Okay? These are living entities that form relationships with other living entities, not just you, okay, or your family, but with the other plants in your garden and with the landscape around you. Okay, and so that's, I think, it opens up a whole world of understanding about your surroundings. And I encourage you to open yourself to that new way of thinking about your garden. The 5 key woodland garden design consideration. Okay, first, and this is what we've been talking about, is make your garden a habitat for wildlife and you. Strive to create multiple layers in your garden, and this is what happens in nature. is that you'll have a canopy layer where your taller trees are that provide the overall shaded conditions. You'll have an understory layer with lower, shorter, shade-tolerant trees. You'll have a shrub layer underneath those understory trees. And then you'll have a herbaceous layer, and last you'll have a ground cover layer. Okay, and so all of these plants and the layers are determined by their height and also by their tolerance of shade, going from the neediest, the ones that are neediest of sun at the tallest height, and the least needy of sun, which are, of course, the ground cover plants. So you want to use the right plants, native woodlanders, wherever possible, and you want to plant them in the right place. Now, planting in the right place, as we'll talk about, will have to do with how much water is available and the quality of the soil, okay, how rich the soil is, or whether it's dry and impoverished and compacted, okay, all of those determine the types of plants that you are using. Use a variety of ground covers and mulches to protect the soil, and that is critical to building microbial life. Now, microbial life is everything that goes on underneath your soil that is, all those actions and activities are determined by small organisms, some of which can only be seen in a microscope. Okay, as you can see, the worms and other grubs and various insects. Others are microscopic, and all of these are important. They interact with your plant's roots, and they interact with the minerals and the nutrients in your soil, and they make these minerals and nutrients available to your plants and the roots. Okay, so microbial action is very important, and the microbes eat organic material that turns into, it decays and turns into humus, and that nourishes your microbes. Okay, so all of this is very important, and your plants will contribute to that action. It all works together. In fact, I'm teaching a workshop in August called Understanding Your Soil, where I talk a lot more about things like this. So level of light, part shade is determined by about 3 to 6 hours of sun. So 6 hours, more than 6 hours is the definition, essentially is what we go by when we consider that's a full sun garden. So 6 hours, 4 to 6 hours would be woodland edge conditions, or an opening in the tree canopy. Okay? Anything less than 4 hours of sun would be a deeper type of shade. That would be, and it varies according to whether it receives sun shade all day, like a dappled shade through a very open leafy canopy, or whether it's a dense shade that lasts, that you find between houses that are shaded by something that doesn't move. Okay, so there's qualities of shade, and here in this illustration you can see the layers in a woodland garden and what will flower. Flowering plants generally flower when at times of the year when they can get the most sun. So when would that be? That would be in the spring before the tree canopy fully leaf out, or in the fall when those leaves are falling down and drooping, and the leaves, and they get more sun that way. So you have two periods, which are your best periods for producing flowering plant, the color from flowering plants. Otherwise, woodland gardens are important if you're designing that garden for aesthetic interest, is that you are emphasizing and you're trying to figure out the leaf textures and patterns and all those colors of green. Okay, so this is a look of a full shade garden. It's much more delicate, much more emphasis on leaf textures and the shapes of leaves rather than the colorful production of flowers. Although there are flowering plants, A lot of these are woodland ephemerals, which flower in the springtime, and then they become dormant when the whole canopy develops and they get shaded out. Less light very often means the plants have larger leaves to catch the light, or there's special types of plants like ferns, for example, and mosses and things like that. Okay, so this is a look of a cross-section of woodland soil. It shows you this deep, rich layer of decaying organic material that's caused by stems and plant debris decaying, and the leaves that are left on there that make a lovely leaf, rotted leaf mold that works its way down into the soil. It gets deeper and deeper, okay, and then it has this, so that nourishes the roots of the plants that are seedlings in particular that are starting and establishing themselves. And so this is your goal for your woodland area, your shady area, is to try and improve your soil. That's the probably one of the most important beginning things that you can do. And how do you improve your soil? You'll improve it by adding organic material. Okay, lots and lots of beautiful decaying material, pine cones, and so in my garden, if I've got a broken branch or stick, I just break it off and I throw it back down on the ground. I let the leaves remain. I chop them up. They decay very quickly, and then the plants grow up and around the leaves. So without grass that is going to be smothered, possibly impacted by leaves, then what I have done, of course, is remove my grass and allow the leaves to stay around the areas underneath trees. So this is just a quick little photograph or a diagram that demonstrates the soil food web and how all the different creatures that are living under the soil that promote the healthy growth of your woodland plants. Oops. So there, again, the way that the roots interact with that humus-rich soil. Okay, so starting in a woodland garden, the best way to create a woodland garden in your yard is by taking clues from nature. Go for a walk in the woods and see what's happening there. And bring along a notebook, a plant guide, or your favorite app, and see what is growing right in your area, right around you, and that will give you a clue of where to start with your own woodland garden. Okay, you can take a look at the light and the soil and the drainage. Are there areas that stay wet or moist? Are there areas that dry out? Is your soil sandy or do you have clay? Okay, those you need to have an understanding about how deeply rooted are your trees. Some trees are more deeply rooted than others. The roots, for example, most evergreen trees, the roots are very close to the surface. Maples, the roots are very close to the surface, whereas oaks and beech and other woodland trees have roots that will go down very deep. Okay, so your woodland gardens, be aware, take time. Plants take several seasons to mature, and so if you're going to plant them and then change your mind and decide that they're going to go elsewhere, you should do that fairly quickly rather than working on your established plants. That said, that you can divide up colonies and you can divide plants, and in fact some plants even do better if they're divided over a few years where they die out in the center. Okay, so laying out your garden, you could use a hose, a chalk line. Sometimes what I do is I use an electrical cord. It's nice bright orange, and then I put stakes or else I get a spray. Chalk is very good too. And just determine. I get up and look out my top floor windows. I look at the garden in every way I possibly can to see the vantage points, just to get those curves right and the shape right. Okay, and then you want to clear out thick, at least 10 centimeters of compost. So that would be 3 to 4 inches of compost into the soil in areas you intend to plant. Okay, mulch with rotted leaves, woody plant debris such as twigs and stems. Okay, you can use shredded bark as well, but it's probably best not to just cover the whole thing with big chunky bark. Okay, that doesn't break down. And you want it to break down and start decaying and becoming part of that soil. You want to keep this going for several years until the plant material itself is going to be enough to fertilize and keep your soil healthy. You can put in manure, anything organic that is going to decay and create a nice, loose, friable texture in your soil. In an established woodland, it's best to disturb the soil so you don't dig, okay, to as little as possible. It already is going to have roots in it and microorganisms. For new shrubs or small trees, clear an area, and you want it to be at least half an area, a meter in diameter, so it doesn't have competing vegetation that's going to keep those roots from establishing. And you want to enrich that zone with natural materials. So starting a new woodland garden, for hardscaping, then of course you would need to do that first before you prepare your soil and put in your plants. Again, consider your lifestyle and how you're going to be enjoying your garden, where you want to be sitting, what you need to do. If you've got a patio, do you need a path? Do you want a path for your garden? Decide on those things. So paths and stepping stones are very good. If you can use your own natural stone, or you can use, some people make their own stepping stones and patterns that they like. You've got a great deal of variety and choices, so you can have very nice, neat paths, and these will give a look of intention and purpose to your garden. And then you can have a kind of wild jungle beyond that, but if the path is sculpted and, with clean edges like this, then it takes a look, it makes it look more formal if that appeals to you, if that's your gardening style. So in other words, there are gardens and designs for all sorts of gardening styles. Okay, and it can be more informal. You can use a variety of different materials. You can let your people wander through your garden, and a small yard can look quite big if you block the view and you have paths that twist around in areas that twist around. Okay, so this is lots of fun in shade gardens with trees, and you can play around with these ideas to your heart's content. So decide on path access and the ease of walking. So these people were trying to figure out how to create a woodland garden right here, and where the heck are they going to put their path? Okay, and that's what they ended up doing. Okay, so this is going to work. It's going to work really well. It's going to all grow up and become jungly and beautiful. But meanwhile, they've got a comfortable place to walk. And where is your path going to go? Of course, not everybody lives by a lake. Okay, so just pretend you had a lovely lake at the end of your path. Okay, how would you get there from your house to the lake? Okay, this is what these folks did. Okay, they had a destination where the path was going to take them. Some little steps down, a little viewing area, a patio, and then they created their woodland garden in and around that. You changed as you descended the path. Well, starting a new woodland garden, and you think about layers. In nature, everything's layered with high to mid canopies, understory plantings, and ground cover. Okay, so this is what we want to try, and each layer has a specialized function that attracts different types of wildlife. This is why we're trying to think of our own garden as having layers. Whether you have a large garden, a large property, you're a small one, you can do this. Even if you just have one tree or two trees that are small, you still can think in terms of layers. With your tree, you could have a shrub, and then you can have your understory, your herbaceous layer, and then you can have a ground cover and a little water feature. Okay, and that would work. Okay, and you can see how these different layers create different root levels also, which interacts and complement each other and support each other. And the light and the trees and the various vegetation that are on the understory work themselves into accessing light, and they will essentially move around until they find a place that's comfortable for them. This is what happens in nature. Okay, so when you're planting, first you'll plant your understory trees and shrubs. Okay, that's first. Then you space your trees about a meter, no more than 3 meters, but it can be spaced as close as a meter. And if you're phoning in from the U.S., a meter is about 42 inches, okay, apart. And shrubs between half a meter and a meter apart, depending on the size of your shrub. Then add your ground layer species, and those we recommend that you space depending on the size of the plant. Okay, violets, for example, are spaced more closely than your woodland geraniums. Okay, so herbaceous plants are between half a foot and a foot, or 15 centimeters and 30 centimeters apart. Now, I recommend that you keep your plants in containers and then play around with where those containers are placed until you're happy with the groupings, and that you group your species together so that you get a visual impact, but also you make it easier for wildlife to make use of those plants without having to wander around all over and find them. You can add things like a bird bath or a bench or some other feature to your woodland garden design. And that's also lots of fun. Rockery sometimes is really nice. Okay, so maintenance. Native plants in a woodland garden design offers the advantage of lower maintenance. Okay, so as opposed to trying to keep struggling grass alive and having to water and mow it, you are planting things that can take care of themselves, that don't need that constant maintenance. It doesn't mean that they need no maintenance, because in a drought you would definitely need to water your woodland garden. If you want to flower and be healthy, you would need to take care of it in that way. You might need to thin it out. You might need to protect it from critters that are herbivores or something that rampages through and squashes them. Okay, just like any garden. But certainly it doesn't require the constant maintenance and struggle that a lawn, trying to grow a lawn in there would take. So compost, you'll need to compost it regularly every year, especially in the first, I'd say, 5 years while the soil is building. Allow your leaves and barks and sticks and little plant debris to decay where they fall. Your rain, your weather, your worms, and other wildlife will transport the decayed matter into the soil layers. I know in my garden, I couldn't push a spade. I couldn't shovel. I could not dig a trowel into the soil. It was like concrete, and I have clay soil. That's what the property was like. The soil was like when I moved in. And now I can dig a hole with my hands. It's so open and loose. Okay, and that is something that if I could do it, you could do it too. So water during drought till plants are established, and then you will water as needed if you see the plants starting to wilt. If it's been a long dry period, and especially if you've got special plants that need more water, you're going to need to spot water those areas. And learn how to prune correctly so you prune anything that's damaged. Okay. By the way, I have take that very seriously, because that's how the pathogen enters the oak tree through the leaves. Just as a little aside. Okay, so design basics. Line, shape, form, value, and texture. We're going to those are the elements and principles of design. So those are the elements: line, shape, form, value, and texture. This is just basic design theory. Principles are the organizing elements, and this is contrast, balance, unity, and repetition. So this is my front yard garden several years ago. It looks different now. I took out that hosta, and instead I've got purple coneflower and downy onions and a bunch of other things. The trees are native Cornus alternifolia, pagoda dogwoods, sometimes called alternate leaf dogwoods. Okay, and so line can be, now, again, this is my backyard. I took out those big, the alliums. Instead, I have flowering geraniums, and I have a beautiful plant called the bowman's root, which is a shrub. I have a mayapple still, and I still have a Japanese maple in the back called a waterfall Japanese maple. There's wild strawberries in the foreground, and in the back there's a fence with a grapevine, a wild grapevine on it. Okay, and somebody sat on that little yellow bench and broke it, and I don't have the little yellow bench anymore. So, but I have other things. So things do change, okay? What I really liked about this little section of my garden was the combination of horizontal and vertical lines. And I kept those plants so that I can put them there for that purpose. So you can see it's not long to think about aesthetics and your own pleasure and how wonderful, how much you appreciate the look of your garden. I don't feel that that's a wrong thing. It's just part of your whole understanding and enjoyment of the garden. And with all of these plants, I'm enjoying the seasons and the activity that's going on with all the wildlife. The composition is going to please you when you're designing a garden. So light colors, white, attract attention in a shade garden. Okay, they really stand out. And so in the foreground, you'll see the false Solomon seal, and in the background, you will see flowering dogwood. And texture also. So in the foreground, you'll see a type of it's not a jack and puppet. It's called a dragon's. What's it called? A green dragon. Okay, which is native to our area. They're fairly rare, but they do grow around where I live. Okay, and they're really an unusually shaped jack and the pulpit family plant. You'll see baby hair fern. You'll see little purple flowers in the background of wild geranium. You see in the white flowers are the anemone. For shape, here you combine the wonderful shapes of the leaves, and so it's wild ginger combined with Pennsylvania sedge. So lovely contrast here, and you're emphasizing the shapes of the leaf. And again, you're balancing your large bold areas together with your lighter feathery areas, your patches of darker green with your patches of lighter green, and that looks very nice too. Okay. Here, you're tying it all together. You're unifying this with a bunch of understory plants. So this is where bluebells, Virginia bluebells will work, or violets, or woodland phlox will work, cornflower, anything. And then with taller plants, for example, like the ostrich fern, poking up around it. And then repetition. These are Solomon seals, and so perfect repetition. You've got not only you have the stems that are repeated and these arching forms, but also the beautiful little lines and rows of white flowers. here's a few inspiring gardens for you. And I love this by Frank Habit. Frank Habit was the designer and the owner of a garden in Quebec called Contraband for Four Winds. He says, to me, the most important thing is how a garden fits into its surroundings and the relationship between the contrived landscape and the natural landscape that surrounds it. Okay, well, that's an interesting, very interesting concept. So this is the Contraband's, the tea house area, and so the garden area naturally blends into the surrounding landscape that has not been touched, that is just wild, and then it just gradually transitions to the garden purposeful intentional area, and you can see that it's got a sight line that leads to the focal point right there, which is the tea house. So Frank Habit's tips on making your garden memorable are very interesting. It's very famous throughout the world, by the way. It's very hard to get into also. You've got to make a reservation in advance. Okay, so let your site inspire you. Now this can be in the middle of a hot urban, location. It doesn't have to be in the middle of the woods in Quebec, okay? It can be in any kind of urban or suburban front yard or backyard. Every site has interesting features that can be worked with. And so you have to think of the possibilities of the layout of your property and see what you can do with it. A balcony, a patio, all of which have possibilities. Immerse yourself in plants, get to know how they behave, and what that means to me is that you just try things and see what happens. Not only that, but also you visit other people's gardens, okay? And there's lots to be learned from that as well. Be patient, expect to make mistakes. And of course, anybody that's been gardening for a while knows that mistakes are guaranteed. We consider them as fun learning experiences, right? So create sensual experiences, in other words, texture, smell, fragrance, something prickly, something smooth, something soft, all kinds of things. Also I should mention hearing sound, the rustling of breezes through your grasses, for example, and your tree leaves. Include unexpected and whimsical elements and allow your garden to reflect your personality. Visit other gardens and spend time taking in the experience. So this is the evergreen brickworks here in Toronto with beautiful redbud, which is lovely, woodland edge. We've got understory shrubs. We've got the grass along the path. And by the way, sedges are a great grass replacement in shade garden. Okay, very lovely woodland walkway. Okay, again, more inspiring gardens. Let's see, we've got a understory. You have a combination of bulbs. You could use, I think these look like forget-me-nots to me, which I would not choose. We don't have, we do have native forget-me-nots, but the ones that you see most often are not native. I would go for Virginia bluebells or blue-white grass or something like that if you want a blue-flowered. Woodland phlox is also lovely. This is a serviceberry, multi-spun serviceberry. And you can see, you see through the stems and look past it, through it, into the rest of your garden. So it acts as a kind of intriguing screen on the block, but it invites you to go venture further into the rest of your garden. Okay, and this is a very well-known Mount Cuba Center in Delaware, which has a fabulous native garden. And you can see how they've created a rich texture around the roots of the trees and mulched the path. These are Virginia bluebells in the Woodland Botanical Garden. Now, these are spring ephemerals. They will not last. Okay, the flowers will die and then they become dormant. And so it's always wise around bluebells or along with bluebells that something else is planted that's going to take over once the bluebells and their foliage die down. Now, this is a beautiful combination of sedges. What's really interesting is the mulchy areas. Okay, this looks like some kind of a tiny little ground cover, and I'm not sure what it is. But we would use woodland strawberry, we would use mosses, we would use, if it's in the sun, if it's got some sun, then you could use pussy toes, which is lovely. And you could, other little plants that are great for shade. So native woodland all-stars. I'm going to speed through this because I've got this as a handout. Okay, and the cover shot is the Virginia waterleaf here. So we always look for native woodland plants. There's little native plants that if you have them in your heart, you can go ahead and use too. But we look for the natives, of course. Let's take a look and see what options we have. So here we have some whites. I've divided this by color. If it's got a little water drop, it means it could use some extra water. Salmon seal is a mainstay in my garden. It's beautiful. It's full season. The foliage stays. The flowers are very attractive to pollinating insects. White snakeroot is flowers in the fall. Goat's beard is not native in our area, but it is extremely attractive to pollinating insects, and I include this because it's so dramatic. And fallen flower is a lovely ground cover. Turtle head's great if you've got a moist spot in the shade. Your wild lake are edible, but we encourage people, certainly you do not want to go out into the wild and gather these for food because populations have been decimated by people doing that. Bloodroot is very difficult to grow from seed, but you can buy plants and they will slowly form a beautiful ground cover. Lovely for early spring, and you've got your black cohosh, Actea racemosa, that is also a very dramatic looking plant in the garden. This starry first Solomon seal is typical. This is a Carolinian plant that we can grow here in southern Ontario. It won't go much further north than that, but you could use the regular false Solomon seal, the anthemum, the little species. They have a lovely texture underneath trees in dry shade, and will spread. So this is your anthemum racemosa, the false Solomon seal, okay, with this pony flower. It's got a shoulder flower, also beautiful. Bottlebrush grass is really a terrific shade grass. Planting under your sedges, and 10-leaf sedge is unusual for a sedge. It's got very wide-bladed leaves that have a real presence in the garden, and its flowers, you can see, look like the photo on the right. It looks great in combination and great for leaf texture. Makes a wonderful border plant. Pennsylvania sedge, and of course you can spread this as a matrix throughout your garden planting. It fits itself very nicely. It also will grow in sun and will accommodate dry shade. So then we have our yellows, okay, a large variety from early spring is number 14 down to the 17, the zigzag goldenrod and woodland sunflower are fall blooming. Your yellow violets are lovely native violets, and your trout lilies as well. These are all spring flowers. Now, yellow trillium are not native in our area, in the Greater Toronto area. They're native of west of here. And wood poppies, again, are rare natives. They look beautiful with Virginia bluebells. And the foliage for wood poppies stays. The bluebells, like I mentioned, is the spring phenomenon, and that will disappear. So wood poppies are great for covering up that dying foliage of the bluebells. For fall, blue stem goldenrod is a beautiful arching goldenrod, extremely attractive to fall insects, especially migrating insects. Has lots of nutrients in it. And then your woodland asters, your whitewood asters, and European divaricata, and Eurybia macrophylla is your big leaf aster. Is my big leaf aster, has buds on it already. It's going to be flowering all through July and August and into September. It's a gorgeous plant. And use a variety of ground covers to ensure your soil is never exposed to direct sun. Again, we protect the soil to build microbial life. So ground covers include Virginia waterleaf, and this shows you the way that waterleaf, the leaves develop throughout the season. They start out green and end up having silver spots on them. With beautiful, these purpley flowers, and they just finished blooming in my garden. Okay, woodland phlox is a lovely ground cover. You can see here it is mixed together with sedges. Wild geraniums, and the seeds are interesting. Wild geraniums, they've got these beaks that when they turn brown, and then it just spoils itself. The seed goes springing out away from the plant. And very clever, hard to gather the seeds. Red trilliums, again, very flashy, beautiful trillium native to our area. Purple flowering raspberry is quite a large shrub. It needs some sun. Flowers best in sun, but got beautiful foliage, and it makes a nice, tidy shrub. All the different ferns. One of my favorites is Christmas fern, which has evergreen leaves and stays green all season. The ostrich ferns will take sun, really good in dry shade. It spreads very nicely. And then you have your maidenhair ferns, you've got your oak ferns, bulblet ferns in rocky areas. Wild ginger, you can see the little flower that grows you lift up the leaves, and there you get this interesting purple flower that's pollinated by flies. Apples, again, the apples actually are edible if you get them when they're ripe. Otherwise, they're poisonous. So I would not advise you. I'd just err on the side of caution and not actually eat the May apples. Unless you're really, really sure of what you're doing. But these make a beautiful texture in the woodland, nice in combination with other plants. Wild strawberries, so these are woodland strawberries that will accommodate shade. Different from wild strawberries for sun, the foliage is a bit darker, slightly differently shaped, but also has nice edible strawberries. Barren strawberries do not produce berries. And then your trees, small trees and shrubs, are your alternate to leaf dogwood, which really does well in my garden anyway, and will make babies that you can lift and plant elsewhere. Maple leaf viburnum, Bowman's root, and you can see on the right the photograph of Bowman's root, which is a really prolific flowering, very dainty looking plant with ornamental seed pods. The leaves turn red in fall. Very great all-season shrub. Should be in all gardens. You don't see this very many gardens at all. Spice bush, which hosts the spice bush swallowtail butterfly, and that blooms in the spring and is thought of as a great native substitute for forsythia. Popcorn bee, which is a beautiful small native tree, also a host to swallowtail butterfly. And here various books and flyers come out Gardens for Homes is put out, and Woodland Plans for Landscaping, put out by the Credit Valley Conservation Authority. And I'm proud to say that on the cover of the native Woodland Gardens for Homes is my house and my front yard garden. They came and took a look, and they took pictures together with a birdhouse my daughter husband made right here, you could see hanging. But go to your local lore, okay, and get resources for information then. So do good, okay, and this is how we do good. And you can do more good by joining us. Blooming Boulevards, our membership's only $15 a year. Apply for a boulevard garden if you're in Mississauga, it's free. Take a workshop, which is what you're doing today, but we offer more. Volunteer, again, if we're accessible to you. Certainly, we deeply appreciate all donations, and we turn those donations directly into things like potting soil, grow lights, native plants. So our 2024 garden applications are now open for next year's gardens. Upcoming webinars are on Saturday, July 8th. I'm teaching Goodbye Lawn, which has lawn alternatives, how to get rid of your grass, some or all. On Saturday, August 19th, Understanding Your Soil. And that is it. Our workshop handouts are available at www.bloomingboulevards.org/services-7. And I'm going to stop my screen share, and I am very happy to answer any questions that you might have. So feel free to unmute yourselves and just ask me questions, okay? You can raise your hand if you like, or just chime in.
I have a garden under a 100-year-old cedar hedge. It's my woodland garden. The roots compete incredibly hard with everything that I have there. I've been told that I can just do severing with a good sharp spade around some of the plants, and but I don't know what else to do in order to keep the plants under the cedars warm and watered. It's hard.
Yes, I have a garden underneath a cedar tree too. So growing in my garden underneath my cedar tree, first of all, I did that thing that I talked about in my webinar, and then I added a lot of compost. Okay. It's very light. You're not adding triple mix, you're not adding a heavy mineral soil, right? You're adding organic material on top. And that's what would normally be in a cedar forest anyway. It would be, rotted material from the dropped leaves from a cedar. And so you add lots and lots of compost, and then you put in plants that have roots that will accommodate those cedar roots. Now, cedar roots, if you dig into the soil, you'll find that there's this incredible spidery network of roots, okay? And so what you do is you dig small holes that will accommodate a small size plant. And some of those plants, the ones that I have that are really successful around my cedars, are called white snake root. And they make a beautiful baby's breath type flower in late summer. Sometimes during a drought, I do have to water them because of competition with the cedar. Cedar appreciates the water too. But they are doing it beautifully around the cedars. The other is I have wild columbine, and it depends on how much light you're getting. Mine get light in the late afternoon, so the columbine appreciates some light in order to flower really nicely. But columbine naturally grow in well-drained, sort of rocky areas. They don't like to be in soggy, wet places, and they're fine in that type of situation where they're having to fit their roots around things. Like,
It's a
so
challenge.
yeah, what do you have growing there right now?
Oh gosh, hostas, hellebores, anything that is resistant to drought, I try to put in there. I remove everything now that is not surviving, but it's looking pretty desolate this time of year because we haven't had a lot of rain.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I would advise you to start to try and put in some white snake root. Try some columbines in there. I also have ginger, wild ginger.
Yes, I have that.
Yeah, and that is, I find, does quite well. It's racemose. It's has a little goes underneath the ground and manages to fit itself in. I have golden Alexander, which does perfectly nicely as well. So, and then piles of compost.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it does that itself. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? Next question.
I have a question. That's
Sure.
okay. I've got a lot of hostas and ferns and non-native plants, and is it okay to keep these plants and combine with the native plants?
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering about that as far as the pollinators are concerned. Will it still? I can't see myself digging out my plants that have been here for like 20 years or so, but I want to become more native. So
Yeah. So what you can do, everybody has their own way, doing this, and your emotional ties to your lawn plants, I have a peony that was here from the very beginning, and it's right in the middle of everything, and it just stands out like a sore thumb, and I not going to get rid of it. My Japanese waterfall maple, I'm not going to get rid of. But what works for me, that's all I can say, because there's no rule here, is that as I increase the number of natives, and they grow and they thrive, and I can see how beautiful they are and how well they're doing, then if there's a non-native nearby, for example, my patch of hellebore, a great big patch of hellebore, okay, I'm now growing ginger and blue stem goldenrod and a few other native, my phone flowers around them, and they are getting bigger, and I'm shrinking my patch of hellebore. So, that's a strategy. That way you don't have a bare garden, right? There's something there that you enjoy, and as you see that something is successful and happy and beautiful that's a native, you emphasize that and then start de-emphasizing the non-natives. That's a strategy that can work.
I live in North York, and is there an organization or somebody that I can get in touch with for doing boulevard gardening in North York? Or also, I've got a lot of plants that I'd like to give away for free. Some of my non-native plants. I just would like to get in contact with doing stuff in North York. Do you know of any contacts that I could?
Well, of course, there's the Suzuki Butterfly Rangers, right?
No, I've never heard of those. What Suzuki Butterfly Rangers? Okay.
Yeah. So you can Google that, and then there is the Project Swallowtail that operates in Toronto. These are projects that people gravitate to if they're interested in native plants in the Toronto area.
Okay, great. And one more question. Sorry, it's not woodland, but I want to encourage the monarch butterflies. Is it okay to grow milkweed in containers?
Well, it depends on the depth of your container then, and the type of milkweed. So
with the regular milkweed, I don't know, the pink one that's
the common milkweed.
Common milkweed.
So milkweed is tap-rooted. Okay, that means it has a deep root. It's not fibrous rooted, so it doesn't have all these other roots that come out. That said, common milkweed has rhizomes. It has these underground stems, essentially, that travel around and then up pop another plant. So you're going to be restricting that action with your common milkweed if you put it in a pot. Then it also is deep rooted. So you're going to in order for the plant to be healthy, you're going to need to provide, a standing pot that sits on the ground, not something that's for the tabletop, but, something deep for it. But, go ahead and try it. It doesn't hurt to try and see what happens. I would gravitate more toward the smaller milkweed, like a butterfly weed, for example, for something in the pot.
Okay, and just before I go, I wanted to thank you because I attended your native sale, your plant sale, and it was absolutely fantastic. I can't wait till next year. It was my favorite. I wish there was another one. I should have taken more, and your volunteers were phenomenal, answering my questions, and it was the highlight of my month so far was visiting.
Oh my goodness, that's what a nice thing to say. I can see that there's people here in this workshop that are smiling that actually grew plants for the plant sale and that were participated in helping. So I'm sure you've made their day too. So
congratulations. I just wanted to thank you again for it because you were fantastic.
Oh, thank you, Julianne. We enjoy it too. It's lots of fun for us. Although it's an enormous amount of work, I must confess. Okay, next question, please.
Hello.
Yeah.
It's Suzanne. I have a question for you about trees. We have quite a large lawn, and a couple of years ago we were doing an oak tree, and we were putting foam flower underneath, and of course we were putting lots of earth that we thought would help it, and then we were told don't do that because the fibrous roots underneath the tree can't get the water they need, so we took away the earth and we sort of planted the foam flower with very little earth, and then we just used some mulch. Now we want to do our birch trees and our apple trees and stuff, and so is it the same situation where we shouldn't put a lot of earth under the tree when we plant new plants, and foam flowers and some of the others you mentioned are good ones so that little caterpillars can drop down into that earth and do their thing?
Okay, so I can answer that question. And this, I think, it's important to understand the difference between, there's three things: mulch, compost, and soil. Okay, so you're saying earth, it's soil. So mulch tends to be bark chips that last, that cover the surface, that keeps the surface cool, and helps to deter weeds. That's what the job of mulch is. Mulch also, if it's made of some organic material, and typically it's bark, will slowly break down onto the surface of the soil and need to be replenished to continue doing the job it's doing. Okay. Compost is an organic material like mushroom compost, worm castings, manure, leaves, rotted leaves, and those break down very quickly, and they are meant to decay, or they already are decayed and rotted, and they integrate themselves into those top layers of the soil and help those soil organisms that we were talking about. Soil, or earth, is entirely mineral. It's made of quartz, it's got iron and other trace minerals in it. It's a mineral. It does not have organic material in it at all. So when you're adding soil, topsoil, you're only adding minerals, okay? You're not adding any kind of organic material. And so in a woodland situation under trees, what they typically have, they have soil. You have soil, but you are missing and lacking, particularly if you're not allowing any kind of plant debris to remain there. If you're cleaning that up every year and getting rid of your leaves and raking up stems and all of that, there isn't enough organic material that remains to break down and keep your soil what we call friable. That mineral soil needs air spaces. It needs to increase its porosity and the ability of water soil. Does
So
that,
what would you suggest if we were going to make underneath the canopy of the tree, then just compost and mulch, and then plant small, and just forget the soil and just have to dig a little bit so you don't destroy the
Yeah.
root, the fibrous root?
you have soil already. You
Okay.
have soil, okay? What you don't have is compost.
Okay, we have lots of compost here, so we can do that.
You need organic materials, you need compost. If you have a shallow rooted tree, you're not going to be able to really scratch that compost into the soil and integrate it. You're just going to have to allow the weather and natural processes to integrate that into the soil, but it will happen. Okay.
Would a suggestion be?
Then you mulch on top of that to keep it cool, to keep the roots, weeds out.
Okay. Would a suggestion be for the first year then just, do you lift off the grass, by the way?
Yes.
You lift off the grass. And then just compost and mulch and then plant the flowers the next year so that the earth has a chance to become not so hard underneath the mulch, the compost?
Yeah, that would be a good strategy. It depends on how hard and how dry.
It's hard. This stuff is hard clay, like it's hard.
Yeah, yes. And
But we're near a pond, right? So the roots go down, the trees are healthy.
yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
And I can't emphasize enough how superior and how valuable it is to trees to allow rotted leaves to remain there under the surface of the trees. That's the way that they take care of themselves. And so what I did with my
You
yard.
blow away though.
Yeah.
Blow away.
I know. So there's a strategy for that. Gather up leaves, okay? Even your neighbor's leaves, right? You can be a leaf grader, and pack them into the back of your car and drive them to your house. But which I did, and I went and gathered my neighbor's leaf bags. Put them in black garbage bags, punch holes in the black garbage bags, make sure that they're nice and damp. So I went usually after it had been raining, and I gathered up these wet leaves, put them in black garbage bags, and let them rot for a season until the next spring. And that is what I added.
Like black plastic?
Yeah. When you open up the garbage bags, the plastic, those leaves are rotted inside. When you open it up, it's this black, crumbly, hardened gold. It's just lovely. And that you sprinkle over the top of your soil.
In the springtime?
Yeah.
Or be there in the, yeah, okay. Interesting. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Wear your gloves. Okay, next question.
Can I ask a question related to that? So I have a big native garden that we just put in last year, but it's beside a Norway maple. And so I'm wondering if it's okay to leave the Norway maple leaves, being that they're not native and it's also invasive, or if I should take those away.
Oh no, the leaves, the soil and the microorganisms don't care what kind of leaves they are. Okay.
Okay.
They don't discriminate against Norway maples. The bad thing about Norway maples is that the canopy is so dense that understory plants really, and it leaks out earlier than our native sugar maples and red maples and black maples. Okay, and so so the maples. Sorry, a cat is attacking my computer cord. The maples. The Norway maples essentially deprive the ground of the nutrients and water. Water can't get through that dense canopy, and it shades out these woodland ephemerals in the springtime. So that's, but the texture of the leaves themselves, when they break down, they don't have any magic nasty chemical that poisons the soil or does anything like that. Go ahead and rot those leaves and make sure that, allow them to lay there and decay, just like any leaf.
Terrific news. And just then on that topic, is there any plant that you know of, native plant that can grow under a Norway maple? Because right now,
Yeah, any plant that's dry shade. So these are your woodland asters, your bigleaf wood aster, your white snakeroot, your zigzag goldenrod, all kinds of those plants. Your native wood geraniums, the bigleaf geraniums, for example.
Great, thank you.
Solomon seal, I should also say. That's good. Yeah.
Terrific, thank
I have
you.
a question, sorry. I have a question. I want to change the foundation that is north facing, so it gets about part sun, I would say, part shade. One end gets more sun than the other, and obviously it's super dry soil because the yard was backfilled with sand when they did the house a number of years ago. But I'm just wondering, like, it gets a lot of wind, especially in the wintertime. So some things have not survived, and I want to revamp it and use pollinator or native plants. Do you have any suggestions?
Would it be appropriate, do you think, in your yard to put in some understory trees to build some layers there with some shrubs?
We are surrounded by a wooded area all around. We do have a very large shaker tree not far from the foundation bed, as it is right now. It's probably about 6 to 8 feet maybe. And then on the side, it is a very large yard, so I'm thinking more closer to the house to do this section. We did have a service berry tree on the far end that gets more sun. It didn't survive, so it's been removed. So I have a few bare spaces now, and it just didn't look right either. Like aesthetically, to have this big tree sitting right at the edge of the house. So just looking for maybe some shrubbery and then some herbaceous and ground cover. Perhaps.
And where the shrubs would go would be shady, did you say?
It could go, like the one end of the house gets more sun, and then the other side probably doesn't get sun till about 1 p.m. right now. And then it gets mostly the afternoon sun, like into the evening.
I think you have a lot of options there. And it depends, you said that it's dry, so
Yes.
yeah, so you would be looking for a shrub. You would, again, the height would be up to you. That can take some drought. You said that it's dry there, and that can take part shade. So your bush honeysuckle is one. I always recommend the pagoda dogwood, but that can get to be 30 feet or so high. A hop tree is also a small understory tree, which is very nice. It can take some shade. Have you thought about a larger shrub, for example, like an elderberry, which is very attractive to birds? It depends on, you said you have a large yard, so elderberries can be really nice. Gray dogwoods are clonal. I wouldn't put that too close to the house, so that would go against, an area where you had more trees, but it's really good for a woodland edge, a gray dogwood. That's a tall shrub. But for lower shrubs that are more ornamental and flowery, chances are you're going to need a little bit more water for the ones that would accommodate shade, and that's where you're going to need to beef up your soil so that you've got good, nice moisture retaining soil for a woodland plant, and that, like the bowman's root I talked about. And so you might have a patch of an area where you could work on and just work on, restoring or trying to improve the soil in one small area and landscape that, and then move on to another area a bit at a time if you've got a big yard. Does that make sense to you?
It does, thank you. Now, another quick question, because where we live north of Kingston, we're on limestone bed, so literally I can't dig into the soil, because I'll hit rock everywhere, and most of the garden in the back, that I did put in is it's kind of a combination of natives and non-natives, and of course there's the hostas, but I've had to literally excavate the rock out of the soil and to be able to create a garden. And so the front is exactly the same because there's so many trees, there's so many roots, but also, you know, you can't put your spade in more than a few inches and you're going to hit a rock. So, do you have any suggestions for planting? Not specifically the foundation bed, but there was one area I thought, oh, there's some native berries growing, maybe I can put berries, but I went around with my spade and I can't even dig into the soil. And there's milkweed. And I'm very happy to see this year it's planted itself there. Or should I just leave it alone and just let nature do its thing? Instead of trying to add to it.
So this is where I would go into the surrounding landscape that would have a similar condition and see what's growing there.
Yeah, because but I just can't get into the soil to put anything in. So do you have any, other than building it up, which you can do, but it's going to take a lot of effort to do that.
No, you don't want to do that. You want to work with what you have and put something that's appropriate with what you have. So that's why I'm saying go out to the landscape and see what actually naturally is growing there. And then you design your own yard so that you have some kind of paths and, you know, areas. Repeat, you know, and all of that for and then maybe occasionally put in a patch of where you have modified the growing conditions for something that you have that's a favorite. Rather than, yeah, okay. Good luck. Anybody else have questions? Okay, I think we're going to call it quits for today on this beautiful Sunday afternoon. Hopefully the sun is shining and it's warm and beautiful where you are. I know it is here. My husband and I are getting almost 1,000 plants ready for a big garden in a condo complex. So I'll be working on that this afternoon. I've got dirt underneath my fingernails. It's been lovely to speak with all of you today, and I wish you all best of luck. Again, we have files and articles for you to download from our website. I hope to see you again and trying to address this bombardment email bombardment for the workshop. But the next one's happening in early July about getting rid of your grass, so hopefully you'll take advantage of that. Okay, goodbye everybody.